Welcome. I'm Barbara Markham, the Director of the Senior Resources Department for the City of Westland. With me today is Dan McCann, who is an AARP. You're actually our site coordinator.
Yes, I am.
So today, it is tax time now, again. So we have a lot of people out there who are scrambling now, thinking they need to get their taxes prepared. So at the Westland Friendship Center, we have a program through AARP that does free tax preparation. So let our viewing audience know, who do we prepare taxes for?
Well, we prepare taxes for anybody who can walk through the door, but we try to cater to the seniors, and of course we can't turn anyone away, so just about anybody could come in to have their taxes done.
Okay, so there is no really age limit.
No, there's no age limit.
And is there an income limit?
No, there's no income limit, and there are some restrictions on how complicated some returns could be. Some things are determined to be out of scope for our program, and there's a reason for that, because the IRS wants us to try to help as many people as possible and to try to stay away from complicated returns.
Well, there are probably a couple. One of them is that they take a long time to do, and another reason would be some things are better with a CPA, obviously, or I understand that. Yeah, as many people as you can. So it's a pretty simple tax return. Now, this used to be a site where people could make appointments, and we did appointments only. Then a couple of years ago, we changed to a walk-in basis. We do some appointments for our members, November 1st through 30th. So those of you who missed the window of opportunity, you must be a Friendship Center member, and you can make an appointment only November 1st through 30th, and then of course you come and pick up our list. Now, we used to do all appointments, but we did change to a walk-in basis, and people were angry about that, but why did we make that change?
Well, there are a couple of reasons for changing from strictly appointments to walk-ins. Sometimes with the appointments, some people would, for various reasons, couldn't call to cancel, and we would be sitting here with no preparers and maybe turned away some possible clients. The second reason would be our volunteers, from day to day, the numbers can vary from maybe possibly 9 or 10 preparers on one given day and maybe 4 or 5, so it's hard to schedule appointments when we don't have a real hard figure on how many preparers will be available on any given day.
Oh, well, yes, and that makes a big difference. So let's walk through the day. A lot of people wait when the doors open. What happens then when you have a line of people in the morning? Now, keep in mind, this site does Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. A lot of people were confused because last year it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So this year, for 2017, we are at Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So they come to the center in the morning, and what happens from there?
Well, there are certainly some appointments that the Senior Center makes ahead of time, but usually the day before we will put a sign out with how many volunteers we could possibly have come in to do those returns based on how many volunteers are there that day. So we put that sign out the day before, and it may have 10 or 15 walk-ins, and that's based on what we think we can do in that time frame.
So when they come up, you open the door, then what?
We open the door. We certainly hate to see them staying outside in the cold. We try to get them into the building, and then we bring them in, and our facilitators who sit at the front desk, they log them in, and we ask them for their documents and photo ID, their Social Security cards, and sometimes a Social Security statement if they're seniors. And then we wait for our preparers to get their computers going, and then we start the process.
Okay, now, for example, if somebody doesn't have all day, or they're bringing, somebody who is homebound, and they're bringing their taxes in, or they can't stay, they're going to work or whatever they're doing, or they have to pick up somebody at school, or can they come in and they get a number? Do they have to wait here the whole day, or?
No, when we give out the numbers in the morning, we try to make sure they get logged in and they turn their number in to the facilitators. And then if their number is a higher number, say 15, and we can only do 5 returns an hour, well, then we would tell them we probably couldn't get to them until noon. And so we said it might be a good time maybe to go home or go get a cup of coffee and come back in a couple of hours. You will be logged in, you won't lose your place in line, and we'll go from there.
Well, I've talked to a lot of people, and often they call concerned if they made an appointment, if they're a member here, they made an appointment in November, and they're worried because they haven't gotten something back that they feel that they need when their appointment is approaching, or somebody wants to get them done and they want to come in and they're waiting for that one piece of information. Can you get started on taxes without having everything?
Yes, we can. There are issues that sometimes the client forgets to bring a document, or in the case of a brokerage house, those documents come a little bit later in the tax season. They come sometimes in the middle of March or later. Also, sometimes there's a signature needed. When we can hold those returns, do about 95% of them, hold for a signature, hold for a document, and we can put it that way. The client would come back at the next day that we're open, and we would take them right away to finish that return.
Okay, so when they get the item that they need, then they just come in and you finish it up, and now they don't need an appointment to come back in, they just come in?
No, they don't need an appointment. They can just come in and they would go to the front of the line in theory, and the next available preparer will finish that return that's probably 95% done.
You know, I've heard on the news, and people were talking, of course, we know all about identity theft, and we know that there's an issue with sometimes security, but part of that has to do with tax returns. There are people or criminals who actually have interceded and claimed somebody's tax return. So what is necessary? What is the government requiring us to have so that we can make sure we identify that person?
Well, certainly the Social Security card is the primary thing that taxpayers should bring, if at all possible. Photo ID, their driver's license. If they have a return from the prior year, bring that in any case. But if it's from the site here at Westland, that would be really valuable to us, because there'd be information from the prior year on that return. We could look at it and make sure that everything is covered.
Yeah, because if they have had their tax return done and you can look on it and say, well, does this still applicable? Do you have this? Oh, I forgot all about that. So that, I'm sure that prior return, it would be very meaningful. So if they have to have their Social Security card, their driver's license, their return from the year before. So when you tell people, if somebody's coming in for the first time, what do you tell people that they need, that they should bring in?
Well, they certainly need their Social Security number, photo ID, a return from the prior year if at all possible, property taxes if they want to get the property tax credit, bank interest statements, and then there's going to be an exchange between the preparer and the client, questions asked about various things. Do you have any other income? Dependents, if you have dependents, you must bring their Social Security card. There's no way you can change the IRS law. You're going to have that. I'd like to add also that if a return is done here, there's always two preparers look at every return. We call the initial prepare, and then we have a step called quality review that helps us to catch any mistakes, and there's always two preparers that look at every return.
Okay, so let's, aside from the people who want to get their taxes done, let's talk a little bit about the volunteers. This is a wonderful program, and a lot of people sometimes can get snippy, but I want everybody to know that the people who do the tax preparation are volunteers. They give up their time freely. They are not paid through AARP to do this. And I always like to stress also, it is not a right to have your taxes done. It is a privilege. And so what about these selfless people who during tax season step up to the plate to help a lot of people who really can't afford to have their taxes prepared by a company?
Right. Yeah, some of the volunteers, in fact, we do have one lady, she works for H&R Block normally, but she does volunteer 1 day a week. And it has been cases where our volunteers have called the night before, they're sick, they can't come in. And if they only work 1 day a week, or possibly 2 or 3, some days they just can't make it. Most of the preparers are, like myself and a lot of the clients, were seniors, and sometimes things happen to us.
Well, and they're also very dedicated, but life does happen.
Right.
So, all right, so if somebody's interested who may be watching the show about becoming a tax preparer, what would they need to do? Towards the fall, would they need to, call us, let us know?
Yes, if they wanted to be a volunteer, either a tax preparer or a facilitator, someone who helps to screen the clients, they could certainly call the AARP Foundation, or if they have access to a computer, go on the AARP website. There is a volunteer link. They can call that number. They can ask to, they'd be interested in being a preparer. What the trainers do in Southeast Michigan is they will have classes, usually 3 or 4 days in December, and then 3 or 4 days in January. All people who wish to volunteer, they must be certified after testing, but it's the training is very adequate, and once they are certified and tested, then they would be brought into a tax site that's close to their location where they live, and they would sit with the experienced preparer, watch to see how he screens the client who comes in with questions and goes through the tax forms. And then when they're comfortable, they would change seats with the preparer. He would move over and just sit there and be a place to ask questions and help them go through the program.
So the people who volunteer don't necessarily have to have tax experience. We'll say if somebody worked in a bank, they're just good with math figures. Can those people apply to be volunteers?
Oh, certainly, and they would not be put into the deep end of the pool, so to speak. They would try to be assigned a client that doesn't have a lot of complicated issues in his return, and start off slowly.
Now you have a lot of tax preparers who return year after year. They're quite a dedicated bunch.
Yes, we have some, and there is a little program in the AARP program, the AARP Tax Aid program, where they do get medals from time to time for 5 years of service, 10 years of service, and even more than that. So they are a very dedicated group.
Well, that's wonderful. So, so we can take anybody at all who comes in, preferably low income or seniors, but you will serve everybody. There is no limit to an age or an age requirement, no limit to income. The most complicated tax returns you don't do. That's not what the program is for. Our location is open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Are there other locations in the area where if somebody couldn't get in here, they have because of the days, say they work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Are there any other options?
Yes, there's other AARP locations in the adjacent communities. However, as to their days that they work and how many tax preparers they may have on site, that can vary quite a bit. So that's something they would have to look into to decide where they want to go to have their taxes done.
Now, all sites are e-file. Explain to our viewers what e-filing is.
Well, e-filing is when you come in to have your return done and the return is completed. There is a form that they must sign, and it's called a signature e-file authorization form. And when they sign that, and they keep all documents, we keep nothing, that means that they understand that we have the right to e-file the return to both the federal government and to the state of Michigan. Also, it's a good idea to file. Some people say they don't have any income where they have to file, but we suggest that by filing with the federal government and the state, your Social Security number is checked twice by 2 different agencies every year. So it's a good idea. It's a free service, and that might help, especially with identity theft and fraud.
So are they doing any mail-out checks at all? I'm not aware of that. Is everything e-file now?
Not necessarily. There are the case where there is a paper file, and sometimes that comes if there's a possibility of an amended return. And in that case there, where people sometimes miss a document, and we just tell them we can amend their return, and that can be something that can be taken care of.
Okay, so they will do an amended return if they have to through here?
Yes, we will do an amended return through here. Sometimes in that case we ask that the client wait till their first return is settled, whether they get a refund or they owe, rather than to send the amended return too quickly, and they would cross in the mail, and that's when the IRS and the state of Michigan would probably hold it up because they see 2 returns with the same Social Security number.
The e-filing goes by much quicker. I was very surprised in the last few years that people say, I got my, sometimes it would be 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It actually speeds things up quite a bit, not having all that paper to deal with and doing everything electronically.
Right. And when people e-file, usually the IRS responds to us within 24 hours that the return has been accepted. Now that doesn't mean it has been reviewed, but it's been accepted and there wasn't any fraud or as far as any glitches. And then by the time they process it, it is quicker than having it mailed. It is quicker.
Yes, and plus that, you don't have the chance of it being stolen out of your mailbox and all of the things that go along with that. It's
Right.
much more secure.
Now, and on that note there, if they're gonna do a direct deposit, they must bring their checkbook. They cannot bring something
number
on a
written
piece of
down.
paper. We cannot accept it, and that's not necessarily something, that's what the IRS tells us. We must
Yes.
follow rules from the IRS and from the AARP Foundation when we prepare these taxes.
Okay, well, is there anything that you would like to mention that we haven't covered?
I'd just like to go back and say, try to be a little forgiving for the volunteers who sometimes can't be here. They have your best interest at heart, and sometimes we have to limit the number of people who we can service on any given day.
Well, I think it's quite a blessing that you're here doing this for free. When you could be in Florida and enjoying the weather, and instead you come in day after day and help people out who really need it.
Well, this is a great location to do taxes, and you give us a lot of space to spread out and get our computers set up, so we appreciate that.
Well, we're happy to be of service. You're providing a wonderful service to the community, and we're happy to help out in any way we can.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Dan, for
Thank you.
being with us today, and thank you, friends in the viewing audience.